The Toronto Raptors have fallen off this season, that's fair to say. They've had their bad share of injuries, they've had a bit of bad luck, and for a team that's done the most with the least in terms of draft capital, I think it's fair that they finally get a chance at a higher end draft pick, because seeing what they've been able to do with late first round picks, late second round picks, undrafted players, you name it, they've pretty much turned them all into borderline all-star level players. Seeing as they've been able to do all of that, what they could do with a top 10, top 5 pick, dare I say, if they were to get lucky, could be quite dangerous for the rest of the league, considering you have a pretty nice young core still on the up, and all of a sudden the Raptors could be back to where the Raptors were last year, or even a few years ago, dare I say, if a few things go right over the next couple of years. But outside of the Raptors draft picks, how their seasons ended, all of that, we can talk about that when it actually happens. What we've got to talk about today is someone who's gone from a most improved candidate last year to a borderline all-star, particularly the last 25 or so games. I say if he started the season like he's been playing the last 25 games, he would have definitely had a serious case for an all-star honor, and that's Norman Powell. Now, before I go into what Norman has done so differently to take him from a good player to a borderline star, as I mentioned, if you could drop a like on the video and subscribe to the channel. I make content like this every single day, and doing so really helps. I'm also close to 20k, so if you want to help me out, that would be cool. No harsh feelings either way, but it's free, so I'm just tossing that out there. But I think a lot of us thought Powell was going to have another improved season after the leap he took last year. But when he started this season like he was in a permanent hangover or something had happened, I don't know. His vacation was a few weeks long, he'd been eating a bit too much. Something happened, because through the first 6 games, 3 of those games he recorded less than 20 minutes, and he was borderline out of the rotation, recording less than 20 minutes for a team that wasn't winning. So it was a pretty drastic fall off for someone that looked like he was on the up. Since then, well, to say he's flipped the switch is probably an understatement, because through the first 14 games of the season, Norm was just averaging under 12 points a game on just over 20 minutes a night, which was pretty disappointing given I and other people had bookmarked him to have another improved season, maybe pushing towards 18 to even 20 points a game at a stretch. Since then, over the last 24 games, to say things have heated up for him, that would be an understatement. That would be an understatement, because things have gone blazing hot for Norman Powell from pretty much everywhere on the floor. He just cannot miss. I mean, most recently we saw him against the Pistons score 43 points. He missed 4 shots. 14 of 18 from the field, 8 of 12 from 3. He missed 4 shots. I know it's the Pistons, but they lost, and he scored 43 on 4 missed shots, and he was making tough shots, coming off screens, doing what he does. That's just an encapsulation of what he's been able to do. But it's not just been one game. It's been over the course of 24 games. He's now averaging over 24 points a night. His efficiency is 53% from the field, 46% from 3, and over 87% from the free throw line. Yes, he's nearly at the 50-40-90 club, and he's doing this on volume. I mean, when you look at players who have over a 20% usage rate, which for people who don't really look at usage rate, it's basically just anyone that has the ball in their hands a decent amount. I mean, Powell, like we've seen, is probably more of a third option, at times a second or a first option even. But those kind of guys can have a 20% usage rate. It's not just the stars, it's a lot of different people have a 20% usage rate. Powell is one of the most efficient players in that time, pretty much the most efficient players. When you look at some of the players ahead of him, 2 players ahead of him have played minimal games. And then you look at the players below him, he's ahead of the likes of Stephen Curry, Nikola Jokic, Zach LaVine, bona fide scorers, all-star level players, MVP candidates. Norman Powell just tops that list. And it's not like he's doing that on limited shots or limited volume or a limited period of time. This is 24 games now, 24 points a game. I know, nice numbers there for Norm, and doing it on the most ridiculous efficiency you could pretty much imagine. For someone that was efficient last year and someone that was scoring well last year, to take that up a notch, like a significant notch, needs a lot of respect. And I don't think people are quite giving him the credit he deserves, because Toronto have had a down year. There's been other players make big leaps. And when you just look at his overall stats, it's not a huge leap considering he started the season slowly. But now it's been a prolonged stretch of games where he's just been lights out. And whenever I think maybe he's going to slow down, he just drops 30, he just drops 40, he just drops 35, and he misses 5 or 6 shots in the process. And you're like, this guy's taking tough jump shot after tough jump shot, and he just doesn't seem to miss. When is it going to end? Maybe it's not. Maybe we have to consider Norman Powell as someone who could be an all-star from next year onwards. But how's he managed to turn into such a monster from a scoring perspective? Because that's exactly what he was. We saw signs of how good he could be last year. He had a few stretches where he went off, a 5-game stretch just towards the end of last year where he averaged around 30 a night on similarly good efficiency. But we didn't see this, where it was such a prolonged period of time, and it was so good. So what's clicked? What's changed for the man that is now the Raptors' go-to scorer, or at least has been the Raptors' go-to scorer over the last 20 or so games? And when I look at these stats, when I show you these stats, they're all going to be over the last 24 games. That's the sample size we're looking at. It's not like I'm picking and choosing different types of the year. It's just one stretch of games after a slow start to the season, which, I don't know, it just seemed like he didn't have a good start to the season. Who knows why? But since then, it's been consistently great. So we're going to look at those numbers instead of the whole season. Since then, over the last 24 games, he's picked up his aggression at the rim a bit more than last season. He's never really struggled finishing at the rim, given his frame, his athleticism, plus the threat he poses as a shooter from the mid-range, and from 3, his cutting ability. All of those things make for someone who would be a good finisher at the rim. But he's just improved that. Just enough for him to be more of a threat at the rim, someone who gets to the foul line more as well, which is another key thing to his scoring. He's getting to the foul line a lot more than he was last season, nearly 5 times a game for someone that shoots well at this foul line. That's easy buckets for him, easy points at the rim, easy points at the free throw line. That's a reason for his improvement. And then you just look at his 3-point shooting. He's shooting a similar amount of catch and shoot shots, a bit higher percentage, but he was shooting a high percentage last season. What he's doing more is pull-up threes, which for most NBA players isn't normally a successful shot. It's normally the least efficient shot in the game, but he's making it work. Nearly 40% of those on decent attempts a game, compared to last year where it was a terrible percentage on not too many attempts a game. What can we attribute to this? I mean, the Raptors in general do a really good job of getting him and other players good looks. They set screens with their bigs. He comes off ball. He cuts around the baseline. He runs off screens, like I mentioned. They do those kind of things, and he hits those shots off the catch. In terms of pull-up shooting, sometimes you just can't really measure or try to understand how someone makes that kind of a jump. We know he's had it in him. Maybe it's just confidence. He's flipped the switch like I mentioned. Who really knows? We don't really know why his pull-up shooting has been so much better. There's obviously reasons why he's getting such good catch and shoot looks like I mentioned with those screens the Raptors like to set with their bigs. Even at times you'll see Kyle Lowry set a screen just for Norman Powell to get the ball and shoot straight away. That's why he's so good off the catch, and he's just a dead eye in general. In terms of pull-up shooting, I don't know. It's just been great. It's just been fantastic. That's all I can really say about that. But another thing that has made his scoring run so impressive is there's been games where they've missed Freddie, Pascal, OG, and he's been the guy, the man to shoulder a big load, and he's generally been able to do it. Teams have focused their game plan, their players onto him, trying to stop him, and he's still been able to put up good numbers on good efficiency. Just in general, over this stretch of time, he hasn't really had too many underwhelming games. I mean, it's only a couple of underwhelming games. If you're comparing him to other all-star level players, well then, yeah, a couple of double-digit performances are underwhelming, but he hasn't had any stinkers, and he's had a lot of fantastic performances through games where he's been forced to be the number one guy, where he's copped the best defender, where he's copped their defensive plan, and he's still been able to put up with that. For me, that's just a huge thing going forward. If he has that experience as the number one guy, if the Raptors need him to be a number one guy for a stretch of games, like he's been able to show going into next year, if they're able to re-sign him, if Kyle Lowry doesn't re-sign him, then he might be asked to shoulder a bigger load more consistently, and his experience as the number one guy against legitimate NBA teams. It's not like he's doing this in garbage time or anything like that. No, he's doing this at the start of the game when teams know he's going to be that guy, and he's still able to put up those numbers. That's hugely beneficial for a Raptors team that could always do with more scoring, considering they're such a great defensive team. And we may as well segue into the defense. Defensively, he's not a liability. He's not great. He's just a solid defender. But when you have guys like Freddie, OG, Lowry, if he stays, as I mentioned, Pascal, all of these guys, you're going to bring in a center that's probably defensive-minded, knowing the Raptors. You're going to be fine if he's not a fantastic defender. If he's an okay defender, he's not a liability, then you'll be perfectly fine. And that's exactly what he is. Then from a playmaking perspective, he doesn't pass a lot. He doesn't need to pass a lot. When you only miss 4 shots in a night and score 43 points, you can get away with 0 assists. Yeah, 43.0 assists, not a bad stat line. You can get away with that if you're making all of your shots. It's kind of hard to go up to someone and say, look, I know you've been shooting better than anyone in the entire NBA, but I'm going to need you to start passing. It's like, I don't know, because he's making all of his shots. It seems like something that you don't really need to tell someone. But even with that being said, over the last several games, he's averaging 2.5 assists a game. He's had some games where he's had 4, 5, 6 assists. We've seen him make some plays, some pretty good reads. When those bigs set those screens that get him open off those catch and shoot looks, he's someone that can see the defense run him off the 3-point line, run to the rim, and then drop it off to a big. I've seen him do it on a few occasions. He's shown that as a passing ability. He hasn't shown a ton, but he doesn't need to. If Lowry leaves and he's the consistent go-to guy, I think things are going to open up for him. If he consistently averages 20 plus points a game, he's this efficient, he's this dangerous from 3-point range, from everywhere on the floor, it just makes the game so much easier as a passer because the defense is always pressing up onto you and it just leaves space in behind. So I don't think it's going to be too much of an issue. Will he ever be a great playmaker? I don't think so. I don't think we expect him to be a great playmaker, but he'll be someone that could probably average 3 to 4 assists a game and make the right reads and passes. It's not like he's a terrible passer. He's someone that looks to score. And like I mentioned, if you're scoring at this rate and this volume and this efficiency, can you blame him? Now, just finally touching on some potential rumors suggesting a trade. This doesn't make sense to me unless you know he's not going to re-sign. And I didn't look at his player option. I know he's got a player option. I think it's 10 million last time I checked. There's no point checking it because we know he's not going to take it. He's going to be getting a bag next season. And the Raptors do have some money to pay him. I think around $20 million a year seems like a good rate. I mean, if he continues playing at this rate and gets towards 22 to 23 points a game, he might request even more. He might be able to get more from another team, which could be risky and could be a reason why the Raps look to move him while they can. The best thing to do would be to keep him. I know it's pretty good general manager work for myself, but I think that would be the best thing to do. They're still a pretty youngish team if you take out Kyle Lowry. The Raps, like I mentioned, might have a chance at getting a top draft pick that they can bring into their team and immediately probably bring him in and make an impact. They'll bring in a center that isn't Aaron Baines. Yeah, let me re-clarify that. That could be a huge bonus. They've got a great head coach. Regardless of if they keep Kyle Lowry or not, they're still going to be a great team with a relatively young core. So it just makes sense for him to stay and for the Raptors to keep him. So I think at this point in time, Norman Powell makes sense to re-sign with the Raptors. The Raptors it makes sense for them to keep him considering he's been lights out and he deserves some respect. If he started the season doing this, well then he could have been a candidate for most improved player like he was last year. Similar kind of jump to what Brandon Ingram made last year, if I believe, going from like that 16 to 17 point per game guy to that 24 point per game guy, that all-star level scorer, just someone who can get buckets any way, any form, 3-point range, off screens, pull up, catch and shoot, you name it. He's getting buckets at the basket, dunking on people. He dunked on someone in the Pistons game. Norman Powell is doing it all for the Raptors. You just need to put some respect on someone that's playing like an all-star and not getting treated like an all-star by everyone else. At least that's what I've seen. So this is me putting some respect on Norman Powell. If you did enjoy the video, a like would be greatly appreciated. Subscribe to the channel. Have a good day. Catch you next time. Bye.